So I'm seeing this as a continuation of the previous video. There was so much that I left out of the first video, I just had to make another. And again, in this part 2, I asked the old familiar questions. Is it the as above, so below doing its thing, or religious prophecies coming true? Have occult invocations manifested, or is it something else entirely? And this will probably be the last video that I do focusing in on this chap, for a while at least, probably. And we've seen how this so-called alignment, the planetary parade as some would have it, at the end of Feb, has all of the planets on the Aquarian side, the Dali side, the sign of the bucket or the pitcher, the moon side of the cosmogram, Jacob's side, as I've already kind of touched on. And I don't remember, in my lifetime anyway, ever seeing a period in which this state has been so utterly dominant in the new cycle. Intensified by this charming chap, of course.
I am the chosen one.
We've seen how biblical prophecies seem to be coming true. This one back in 2024, with a geological quake swapped out for a political one. We've also seen how DT seems to be aligning with a biblical character. And looking at this article, we've seen him depicted as a Roman emperor. We've seen him depicted as this. And perhaps most bizarrely, we've seen him depicted as this. And recently this story popped up. Now, not only does that relate to this biblical character, in the sense of how that biblical character is described in this book, with this word, which means this. This word has some interesting gematria. Is DT aligning with this character? In the first couple of weeks of his second term, he signed this executive order. And then there was this. Is DT bringing some real method to his role, I wonder? And if DT really does resonate with this biblical character, then he is astrologically the perfect scapegoat. This is his chart, his tropical sun in Gemini. But his Gemini sun is in his 10th house, Capricorn's house. Again, we have this twin goat resonance. And remember DT's connection to this eclipse and the gematria of 401, and how 401 days after the eclipse we get this date, the 77th birthday of this state. Well, the two letters from the previous video that form 77, Ayin and Zayin, that spelled this word, in the Sefer Yetzirah, the book of creation, those letters are Capricorn and Gemini, twin goats again. It is all quite bizarre. And I think DT really does qualify to be at the centre of the system of the scapegoat, as at least one goat. If we translate this character into this language, do a little search of the translated word just to double check, and then convert, we get a very interesting number. And regarding this rebuilding plan,
as far as Gaza is concerned, we'll do what is necessary. If it's necessary, we'll do that. We're going to take over that piece, and we're going to develop it, create thousands and thousands of jobs, and it'll be something that the entire Middle East can be very proud of. I do see a long-term ownership position, and I see it bringing great stability to that part of the Middle East and maybe the entire Middle East. Let's
not forget that the theme of this plan was already floated by this guy.
Gaza's waterfront property, it could be very valuable. It's a little bit of an unfortunate situation there, but I think from Israel's perspective, I would do my best to move the people out and then clean it up. But I don't think that Israel has stated that they don't want the people to move back there afterwards.
So whose idea was it originally, is what I would ask. Was it really DT's idea?
Ownership position.
And this 7-7 goat resonance pops up elsewhere as well. Mr. Crowley and his book, Liber 77, the Book of the Goat. And the reason I mention this is because of a letter supposedly written by Crowley that I'm pretty sure most of you will be familiar with. Worthwhile going over again here, and it does lead on to somewhere, so stay with me. But you can actually find this letter online, apparently. It appears to be legit. It's a personal letter to one of Crowley's associates. It goes on to talk in quite derogatory terms about a character that Crowley calls Freighter 210, and how this character is acting quite insanely. Now, Freighter 210, as many will be aware, is Jack Parsons of JPL Laboratories fame. He's credited with being a rocket engineer, and even NASA have used some of his ideas, apparently. Now, going back to Crowley's letter, we have mention of Parsons and someone called Ron. This chap, allegedly, credited with this, of course. And the letter goes on to state that Parsons and Ron are trying to produce a moonchild. Crowley even wrote a book of the same name. And it is, again, just so crazy that this letter is dated the 14th of June 1946, which is when DT was born. DT's actual date of birth. And of course, DT is known for his blood moon. More on that in a sec. And in all seriousness, this could just be a coincidence, but I found it very interesting that the cover of this book, titled Moonchild, and written by Crowley, includes a zodiac wheel with Leo in the rising position. Now, DT also has Leo rising. If we look at his chart here, born 10:54 a.m., New York. So, transposing the book detail onto his chart, we get a pretty good match. And this blonde moonchild is holding something up to Aries. And on the 26th of May 2025, Saturn entering Aries. Could DT be this moonchild? And if we take a look at a more detailed chart, we see DT's blood moon is in Sagittarius tropically. Sagittarius, known as the Archer, of course, which brings us back full circle to Esau, the Archer, the Hunter. DT's moon of Jacob shining with the light of Esau is in exactly the sign it should be symbolically. Amazing stuff. And we do have a blood moon in 2025 on March 14th, the day of this religious festival. Some interesting gematria once again. Has there ever been a public figure that ticks so many boxes? When it comes down to DT and gematria, perhaps the most well-known number is 88, or maybe 888. I've touched on both numbers a few times on this channel.
I was saved by God to make America great again.
Both numbers connect to this character and a resurrection. 88 days after the inauguration for the second term, headlined as a second coming in the pages of major players in the good old legacy media. 88 days after the 20th of January is April 18th. This is Good Friday. And interestingly, from the moment a second coming was announced back in 2022, 888 days later is April 21st, 2025. This is Easter Monday. Now, I'm not saying anything is going to happen, but it wouldn't surprise me. Are more prophecies going to come true? Things are definitely aligning, converging. The question is, what force is at play?
We'd like to address President Donald Trump. Mr. President, sir, thanks to you, our hostages are coming home.